Friends, as time changes, many things change, and new solutions emerge to challenges we face. We must understand these solutions in time. The biggest challenge in today's era is distraction, the inability to manage time, and being unproductive. To solve this challenge, the new theory, the new concept we're going to discuss today is mind management, not time management. Today's book summary is Mind Management, Not Time Management. Productivity When Creativity Matters, written by David Kadavy. David Kadavy is also a writer and a podcaster. He helps people become productive in their creative work. More than 1 million copies of his books have been sold. David has also been featured in TED's, The Post, and The Observer. The thing is, many books and speakers tell you how to use your time effectively. They tell you to do this or that, but the truth is, getting things done has nothing to do with time management. It only depends on how you manage your mind. This summary will teach you some simple and powerful techniques to achieve mind management. So, without further ado, let's begin today's book summary. Mind Management, Not Time Management. Productivity When Creativity Matters by David Kadavy. You see it all around you every day. People are busy running after making money. That's why you should use every second in the right place to earn money. You fill your calendar with so many different activities that you don't have time to rest. And not only that, nowadays people have started multitasking too, i.e., doing many things at once, like replying to emails while having lunch. Is this the same hustle culture that everyone feels proud to be a part of? Has it become common to always feel tired, angry, or upset? This summary will prove that time management is no longer useful, and you won't get anything from it. You will learn how mind management can help you achieve success and get any work done. You will also learn that you don't need to rush in any way to achieve something. Mind management, not time management, is a better way to achieve your goals. So, let's start with the first chapter, Mind Management, Not Time Management. The author of this book, David Kadavy, didn't consider himself a writer. He never particularly liked writing since childhood. But one day, he was offered a book deal that only a fool would refuse. So, David planned his life in such a way that he could write a book. First, he made sure he had plenty of time to write the book. He canceled dinners and other plans with his friends and instead scheduled his writing sessions. David even stopped going on dates and had his groceries and food delivered home. He put his heart and soul into focusing on writing his book. For a writer, it's as if there's a treasure trove of words in their mind, and they play with them. But for David, all this was not so natural or easy. When he sat down to write, he couldn't even write a single word, and countless hours would pass just sitting in front of the computer. Then he started feeling pressure. David had to finish 25% of the book and show it to the publisher in the next few weeks. If he couldn't do that, the deal could be canceled. David didn't want to disappoint his family and friends. In a fit of exasperation, he decided to join a retreat in Costa Rica. He knew very well that he wouldn't be able to write anything even after going there. Did this mean he regretted joining the retreat? Absolutely. But David thought that changing the place might help him get out of writer's block. David started regretting saying yes to the retreat and went out of his house. He wanted to get rid of his frustration. That's when he met Diego. He was on the other side of the road when he called out to David as if they were friends. Diego waved and called David over and started talking to him in Spanish. David didn't want to look like a fool, so he replied to Diego. Talking to him, David found out that Diego just wanted to chat. He loved walking on the beach in the rainy season. Their conversation wasn't very long, but David felt much better afterward. When David returned home, he sat down in front of the computer again. In the next hour, David managed to write the first chapter. From this, David understood what had happened that enabled him to write. The reason wasn't making time to write. Time management was no longer effective. You don't need time, but rather the right mental state to write. David calls this mind management. Mind management means prioritizing your creative energy, but it can also waste your time. Have you ever felt zero motivation after looking at your long to-do list? This happens to all of us. Yet, with mind management, you can get out of this difficulty. Mind management means looking at a task or a problem from a different perspective. In time management, you ask yourself, what can I do right now? Most of the time, this question makes you procrastinate. You know you have to do something, but you don't have the focus and motivation to do it. On the other hand, in mind management, you ask yourself, what am I in the mood to do right now? And what should I do that fits my mood? The best way to get your work done is when your mental state and the work both match each other. This prevents the waste of resources like energy and time. The next chapter is creative sweet spot. Being creative is not something that easily comes within you. It's not a grocery item that you can buy and bring home. The process of creativity takes time. To tell a story, write a song, or create a painting, it's very important for your state of mind to be right. David uses two types of thinking to get into the creative mode: divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Divergent thinking happens when your thoughts are scattered. In this, your attention is on many things. When you connect these different thoughts, it's called convergent thinking. Take the example of writing itself. You want to say something, but you have many ways to say it. First, what do you want to say? Do you want to say it formally or informally, as if you're talking to a friend? Do you not want to give it a name, or do you want to tell everyone that you wrote it? This is called divergent thinking. Convergent thinking is when you choose one of your options. For example, let's say you want to write about your first love. You want to present the tone of your writing to your readers like a friend. You don't want to give it a name because you don't want to reveal your own identity to everyone. That's why you need both divergent and convergent thinking to create good creative ideas. To make your final product brilliant, you need the best ideas. But how will you find these ideas? By recognizing your creative spot. Your creative spot tells you about the time and place where you can do your best creative work. Creative work is not something you can do with the help of a guidebook where no logic or mathematical formula works. Creative work is a unique thought process that we often call insight. According to neuroscientists, insight refers to a sudden realization or a change in perspective. Insight can also be considered a eureka moment, which happens when tears of joy come to your eyes upon finding something. Have you ever suddenly had a brilliant plan or idea? That's what we call a eureka or I found it moment. This happens when you suddenly find some missing words for your song, or you find a perfect plot for your story. Now you want to pet something again, but you don't know what to pet. So suddenly remembering. To pet your favorite cartoon character would be a eureka moment. Finding your creative spot can be easy during your special time. Remember that this is about mind management, not time management. Your energy is not the same every day or throughout the day, just as a lot of your energy is spent at work. Similarly, socializing with your friends or working on your painting or novel also takes up a lot of your energy. That's why find the right time of day when you have the most energy. You also need to coordinate with your system, i.e., your sleep cycle. This system helps you stay awake during the day. Think of it as an upward sloping line. The more you stay awake, the more alert you will be. But along with staying awake, your sleep debt prevents you from being alert. In other words, if you don't sleep well one night, your sleep debt becomes very high. Think of your sleep debt as a downward sloping line because it reduces your energy. The lines of both your system and sleep debt meet around 2:30 p.m. in the early afternoon. This is why you feel sluggish and tired at this time. Understanding your body clock helps you focus on your work more easily. Many people work very focused early in the morning. Just like the best violin players practice diligently for the first 2 to 4 hours of their day. Famous writer Virginia Woolf and psychologist B.F. Skinner did the same. This is because the morning is the time when people are fully awake and most alert. To achieve your creative spot, David has described another method. He calls it the first hour rule, which helps him stay disciplined in completing his work. The first hour rule is when you spend the very first hour of your day on your project, and it shouldn't be just any project, but your most important one. By doing this, you can complete that project quickly. Hearing this, it might seem like, is this really possible? Then the answer is yes, absolutely possible. Start your day with your most important task, i.e., a task that you absolutely have to do. By doing this, the chances of you being lazy to complete it become quite low. Doing so also prevents obstacles from coming in the way of that work. After taking this important learning, let's move on to the next chapter, the 4 stages of creativity. You can still be writing and painting even when you are not actually writing and painting. The process of creativity is not just about writing and painting. Social psychologist Graham Wallace called these 4 stages of creativity, or the 4 stages of control. The first stage is preparation. This is when you think about everything related to your project. Who will be the characters in your story? How long will your song be? What will you use to create the painting? This is the brainstorming stage. In this stage, you have so much information about your project that you become like a walking encyclopedia. David also started working on his book in the same way. There were times when he would sit in his living room surrounded by books, newspapers, and journals, looking at such sources of information. He also had a whiteboard where he would write possible topics and chapters. The research David did was not a waste of time. It was helping him reach the next stage of creativity. The second stage is incubation. This is a time when you are not actively working on your project. You might be working on something else or spending time with your friends and family. We need to take breaks from time to time. Forcing yourself to complete a task immediately doesn't always work. Doing so will make you frustrated, and you will get angry. This will make it difficult for you to find your creative spot and move on to the third stage. The third stage is illumination. This is a eureka or aha moment. The third stage cannot be fully explained. This is because it is sudden and unpredictable. As mentioned, if you don't do the necessary preparation, you cannot reach this stage. You have to spend a lot of time in the first stage. Let's understand how the first stage helps you reach the third stage. For this, we will take the example of Paul McCartney of the Beatles. Paul composed that memorable song called Yesterday in a very unique way. He heard the tune of this song in his dream. When he woke up, he got out of his sleepy state and started playing that tune on his piano. And in this way, one of the greatest songs in history was created. But it wasn't that easy. Even before writing Yesterday, Paul was writing and composing some songs. He had been creating music for years, and because of that, he was able to write a song like Yesterday. His work didn't stop there. No, Paul made sure he completed the fourth stage well too, which is verification. The fourth stage is verification. This is when you think about the eureka moment you had in the illumination stage. In this, you make sure that your idea is foolproof and brilliant. You double-check that nothing is missing. Paul wasn't 100% sure if his composed song was original. He thought it might be a tune he had heard before. At that time, there weren't any apps or software that could tell if a tune was original or not. That's why Paul spent a year and a half just making sure that the tune was his own. During this time, he worked hard on improving the lyrics, tune, and arrangement of his song to change it. If you don't spend your time in every stage of creativity, you can never create a masterpiece. You have to go through every stage of this entire process. The next chapter is the 7 mental states of creative work. David didn't have any strict rules, but he had tasks to do and places to go that help him get into the right mood for writing. To write something in his small notebook, he would go to the 19th floor of the John Hancock Center. These thoughts are scattered at first, but after writing them down, David would also start seeing other things that he felt he should include in his book. The John Hancock Center helped David arrange his thoughts. There was a coffee place called Ipseno Coffee that David really liked. Its captivating, beautiful view and the aroma of coffee beans made that place an ideal spot for writing. Like David, you can also do different types of work according to your mental state. Your mental state can be one of these 7 mental states. Asterisk prioritize mental state. This is when you make a plan. You decide what you need to do and how you will achieve it. In this, you also decide what is important and what is not. This is exactly what David used to do at the John Hancock Center. Asterisk explore mental state. This is not about doing research. It doesn't require giving specific answers to specific questions. The explore mental state is about letting your curiosity run wild and not feeling guilty about it. For example, let's say you are thinking of painting something. You research what to paint, but in the process, you end up watching a whole documentary on the history of painting. You let your curiosity run free. Asterisk research mental state. This is a state where you look for specific questions and their answers. David spends most of his time in this state. He researches how to create a chapter or how to verify if the facts he is going to write in his book are correct or not. Asterisks generate mental state. This is a state where you actually work. You combine the ideas gathered in the previous mental states to create something, like writing your first draft. Asterisk Polish mental state. This stage is about editing and refining the work you created in the previous stage. For example, you pay attention to whether your sentences make sense. In painting, you check if there are any spots left on the canvas where you haven't painted, or there is any color that needs to be made deeper or lighter. Asterisk administrative mental state. You cannot always focus on your creative work. You also have some responsibilities that you need to fulfill, such as paying your bills and spending time with your family. This mental state is necessary because you also need to pay attention to other areas of your life. Asterisk recharge mental state. In this, you need to rest and refresh yourself. Take a day off or go on vacation. When David gets stressed about his book, he goes for a massage. Sometimes watching a funny video or movie can also help. Find ways to calm yourself down and relax your mind. Creative cycles. David had a very strange routine. From 12 a.m. to 4 a.m., he would only focus on his book. At 4 a.m., he would turn off the lights, shut down his computer, and sleep until noon. The next day, David would get ready in the afternoon and go to a coffee shop. He would work in the cafe until it was time for it to close. David calls this a creative cycle. This is a repeating cycle in which you get time to rest along with making progress in your work. There are 4 stages of creativity in a creative cycle, in which you prepare, incubate, illuminate, and verify. A creative cycle doesn't need to be time-based. It can be based on weeks and even different seasons. Let's look at an example of a creative cycle. Beth likes to do the first stage of creativity, preparation, at night. The silence of the night helps her focus, so she finds a lot of information for her song. Then she goes into the second stage of creativity, which is incubation. When she sleeps, Beth's attention is not on her creative work. This makes her feel inspired in the morning. She reaches the third stage of creativity, which is illumination. While having breakfast, she gets an aha moment. She finds the right words for her song and immediately writes them down on the tissue paper she keeps with her. She spends the whole afternoon improving her song. She replaces some words with better ones and chooses the best instruments to play that tune. There are many options for managing your mind. You just need to find what suits you best. The next chapter is creative systems. Once, David was in big trouble. He had to interview Dr. Rock for his podcast. Dr. Rock was an inspiration for David. He had written a book called Your Brain at Work, with the help of which David was able to understand how the mind works in creative work. David considered Dr. Rock his idol. But on the day David had to talk to Dr. Rock, he faced many difficulties. First, the apartment he had rented had construction work going on. There was noise there all day long. There couldn't have been a worse situation for recording a podcast. Second, David had recently come to live in Panama City to write his book, but he didn't know his new neighborhood very well. So he had no idea where he could find a good alternative place for the interview. Third, David knew that rescheduling this interview would be impossible because well-known people like Dr. Rock are always busy. It was like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It seemed clear what was going to happen. David would have to cancel the podcast. Nothing was going right that day. But David's creative system activated, and he wrote an email to Dr. Rock. Somehow, he suddenly didn't feel hopeless. He found a solution for every problem he was facing. In the end,